There are some actual conservative parties in the world, in Hungary, in Italy, and in the United States. But outside of those, who are the traditional parties of the right? When did these conservative parties last do anything conservative, like, say, cutting the tax take overall? Sure, they'll fiddle with various taxes and trumpet the ones they cut, but overall, the tax take goes ever upwards. How about increasing prison sentences? Most jails in the West are so full they can't do anything about soaring violent crime. We get lots of noise and headlines, but no action. They hope things will get better on their own and then try and take the credit if they do. No sign of that yet. What about cutting immigration? Polls show that people in the West have been concerned about this for many years. Every time there's an election, we're told they will crack down and get tough, but nothing happens. Immigration continues inexorably onwards, and this is leading to significant demographic shifts which will profoundly change the country. What about privatizing anything? Can you even remember the last thing that was privatized? Surely conservatives want to take the state out of your life, but this seems completely off the agenda. Government is all-consuming and ever-present. How about something that would make a real difference, like introducing educational vouchers? This would mean schools would have to compete with one another for pupils as parents decided where their kids would go. Wouldn't this drive educational standards up? Wouldn't that help the poorest kids who are worst served by bad schools? When does the right even talk about this simple idea? What about introducing a tax break if you use private medicine? Wouldn't that protect the NHS? Isn't that what we're all supposed to do these days? What about dealing with a clearly partisan state broadcaster? The license fee model is now 30 years out of date, and they could easily switch to subscription only. Boris Johnson talks about this a lot. Does anyone think he'll do anything? What about stopping former politicians pocketing millions when they leave offices for speeches? Does anyone really believe this is what they're paid for? It's payment for legislative favours whilst in office. It's the absolute death knell of any shop or business if you can't simply answer this question. What is the company for? You have to ask the question, what are most Western conservative parties for? If they were really conservative parties, there's a dozen things they could do immediately. Number 1, denationalized schools. The same system that made British Leyland and the Soviet Union is now teaching our kids. Number 2, denationalized hospitals. Some of the worst COVID outcomes in Europe come from the NHS, but they're heroes, eh? Number 3, net zero immigration and turn boats around at the Channel. I had high hopes for Priti Patel. At the moment, it doesn't look like she's doing much. Number 4, balance the budget. Remember when that mattered? I did not have high hopes for Rishi Sunak. 5, have a 3 strikes crime policy, so your third jail sentence was your last ever. Number 6, consider exporting long-term criminals to China, where they can be looked after for about a tenth of the nearly £38,000 a year it costs in the UK, and thereby increasing prison capacity by about 10-fold. That could actually cut crime because we could jail enough criminals. Number 7, absolute, no excuse, no appeal, zero tolerance for foreign criminals. Immediate deportation and never return to the UK after completing the first jail sentence. Straight from prison to the airport, and immediate withdrawal of citizenship from terrorists and child rapists, so again, when the sentences are completed, they would leave the country, assuming that is they survived the 50 years in jail. Number 8, end pointless foreign military involvements. Number 9, end subsidies which encourage young women to make illegitimate children, but instead introduce a married man's tax allowance, so children were brought up in families again. Number 10, leave the World Health Organization, the United Nations, and finally the European Union. Sunset every quango in the UK and have them make a business case for their own retention. Number 11, strip local councils of their planning powers. Have this done centrally by fiat. Councils have failed across the board to build enough houses for our young people to afford, and it's time we faced up to that. For major infrastructure projects such as airport runways, you can have a 6-month inquiry, and after that the Minister decides without the possibility of further delay. And number 12, ensure UK corporation tax is always the lowest in Europe, then watch the economy grow. Instead, they talk about gay marriage and whether someone with male anatomical genitalia is a woman. They don't deserve the name Conservative, for they are not. That's why we need a bona fide right-wing party, not these liberals hiding in Conservative clothes. If you like this, please like, recommend and subscribe.